The trio get arrested, but walk free due to no solid proof. Mabel's persuaded to hit up an art show by Alice, while Oliver runs into Amy Schumer, who wants to turn their podcast into a TV show. Charles is offered a role in a Brazos reboot. They find out Cinda's made a podcast about them, urging them to clear their names. Mabel remembers Bunny mentioned 14 before she died. They sneak into Bunny's place, hear her parrot mimicking her, and discover a missing painting, now hanging on Charles's wall. Charles spots his dad in the painting, while Mabel recalls Bunny also said savage before dying. At Howard's memorial for Bunny, they plan to sneak the painting back into her place, but get locked out when Charles messes up. They hide the painting near a dumpster, only to find it gone later. Oliver discovers Amy has the painting after finding it by the dumpster and hung it on her wall. Bunny's mother, Lenora, checks it out, declares it a fake. Finally, Bunny's parrot, now with Oliver, drops a bombshell. I know who did it. The trio digs into Bunny's last day, revealing she was wrapping up her stint as board president and contemplating a move to Florida. Bunny then popped by Charles, Oliver, and Mabel's place with champagne to celebrate, but they thought she was just dropping by and didn't invite her in. Later, a masked figure attacked her at her apartment. Feeling guilty they could have saved her with a bit of kindness, the trio now suspects Nina as the prime suspect in Bunny's murder. Lucy, Charles' ex's teenage daughter, shows up at his place and drops a bombshell. She knows about some secret tunnels in the Arconia. Oliver also catches Teddy and Theo Dimas, freshly paroled. Later, they confront Nina about Bunny's murder, but she goes into labor and pleads for their help finding the real killer. Lucy calls Charles the best stepdad ever, but he insists she go home. Before she leaves, Lucy warns Charles he's in danger, but doesn't mention she saw the killer fleeing through the tunnels the night Bunny died. Charles, desperate for answers, pays a visit to Jan in prison, hoping she can help. Jan spills the beans to Charles that the killer might be an artist who framed Mabel. Charles and Oliver start eyeing Mabel's girlfriend, Alice, who's an artist herself. Oliver kicks off a murder game called Son of Sam and ends up accusing Alice of being the killer. Under pressure, Alice admits she lied about her art credentials just to impress people. They find out Bunny met someone at her usual diner the day before her death, and that person could be the killer. The trio tries to get Detective Williams' help with a fingerprinted matchbook, but gets a suspicious text asking them to leave it in a public place. They plan to leave a glitter bomb instead, but get distracted and miss their shot. Cinda wants to use a false accusation against Mabel for her podcast, but her assistant Poppy reveals Cinda's dirty secrets. Mabel sees a glitter-covered person on the subway. Later, a video surfaces of Mabel apparently stabbing that person. Mabel wakes up in Theo's apartment with no memory of the subway attack and her bag missing. Theo, who found her, shows her a badge dropped by her attacker, leading them to Coney Island. Mabel recovers her bag, but the matchbook is gone. Detective Williams receives the murder knife from Charles and Oliver. Mabel forgives Theo for Zoe's death. Mabel informs Charles that he found a photo of Lucy on the glitter guy. Charles tries to call Lucy, but the call cuts out due to a city blackout. The trio rushes back to the Arconia, fearing for Lucy's safety during the blackout. The trio finds Charles' apartment broken into and learns Lucy was chased through the secret tunnels. They run into Marv, whom they initially mistake for the killer, but he was just a podcast fan trying to help. Lucy finally reveals to Charles what she saw the night Bunny was killed. When the power comes back, they meet Detective Krebs, and Mabel spots glitter on his neck, realizing he was her attacker. Mabel confronts Detective Krebs, who denies involvement but praises Cinda's podcasts, raising Mabel's suspicions. Oliver confirms Teddy is Will's biological father but decides to keep it secret. Mabel solves a jigsaw puzzle and links a restaurant logo from Cinda's podcast to Krebs. She discovers that Poppy's a kind of fugitive named Becky Butler, and that Krebs is Cinda's lover. Mabel concludes Cinda is the real mastermind behind Bunny's murder. The trio hosts a killer reveal party to force Bunny's killer to confess. They fail with Cinda, so Mabel accuses Alice, who then stabs Charles. It turns out to be a ruse. Charles is fine, and the party was a setup to catch Becky, who's revealed as the real killer. Detective Williams found Becky's DNA on the murder knife, and Mabel connects Bunny's last words, 14 sandwich, to Becky's favorite diner meal. Becky and Krebs, her accomplice, are arrested. They plan to profit from a podcast about a premeditated murder. With the case closed, Charles lands a role in the Brazos reboot. Mabel and Alice get back together, and Oliver mends things with his son, who's cool with not being biologically related. A year later, during the opening night of Oliver's Broadway play, the lead actor, Ben Glenroy, collapses on stage.